So, could I have a volunteer that would read the first couple of paragraphs?
Or Jerry?
In the vision given me December 25th, 1865, I saw that the health reform was a great enterprise, closely connected with the present truth, and that Seventh-day Adventists should have a home for the sick where they could be treated for their diseases and also learn how to take care of themselves so as to prevent sickness. I saw that our people should not remain indifferent upon this subject and leave the rich among us to go to the popular water cure institutions of the country for the recovery of health, where they would find opposition to, rather than sympathy with, their views of religious faith. Those who are reduced by disease suffer not only for want of physical, but also of mental and moral strength. And afflicted, conscientious Sabbath keepers cannot receive as much benefit where they feel that they must be constantly guarded lest they compromise their faith and dishonor their profession. As at an institution whose physicians and conductors are in sympathy with the truths connected with the third angel's message. When persons who have suffered much from disease are relieved by an intelligent system of treatment, consisting of baths, healthful diet, proper periods of rest and exercise, and the beneficial effects of pure air, they are often led to conclude that those who successfully treat them are right in matters of religious faith, or at least cannot greatly err from the truth. Thus, if our people are left to go to those institutions whose physicians are corrupt in religious faith, they are in danger of being ensnared. The institution at blank I then saw in 1865 was the best in the United States. So far as the treatment of the sick is concerned, they have been doing a great and good work, but they urge upon their patients dancing and card playing and recommend attendance at theaters and such places of worldly amusement, which is in direct opposition to the teachings of Christ and the apostles.
What's some of the points in there that are important for us to know? Anybody? We as Sabbath keepers need to have a health institute for the believers so that they're not compromised in their religious beliefs. It's been many years ago, but I went to visit a Sabbath keeper in a rest home. And she was a vegan years and years ago. And being in the rest home, she had excellent care, but her diet was compromised. I used to take her in food that she could eat on a weekly basis because she wasn't being offered her diet in those institutions. And you think about how we use hydrotherapy, how we use not hard labor, but some exercise kind of labor to keep the mind healthy, as opposed to what they're suggesting here, the card playing and all those kinds of things that we know are destructive to our mental capabilities. So having for conscientious Sabbath keepers so that they can keep their faith, we need to offer them a place. And I don't think it should have to be an expensive place scattered 4 or 5 in the whole United States. I think they should be close by where people can come. And as our generation gets older, we're going to have more and more people that need that kind of care. So and as we go further in here, she explains how you don't have to do it all at once. And so as we read further, we'll get the whole big picture that she's trying to tell us about how we should have the health institutions. Anybody else have anything that they want to bring out in these 2 paragraphs? Yes, Jerry?
It appears that the basis just in these 2 paragraphs is that there is a correct way to do healthcare here so incorrectly with healthcare.
Mhm.
And so that the way that God is approving of is what she's commending here. That, you know, that it's natural, it's water, cures, it's exercise, it's air, it's what we understand healthy living to be and the correction of it. But the basis of being able to go to an institution like that, and when the people see that they are actually being
Cared for naturally.
naturally healed from these diseases in such a way that it opens the avenue to the faith. And so that, you know, that I think is the basis of what our health institutions should be about.
Mhm.
I mean, we're learning in some of these videos that the health system that was introduced
Mhm.
many years back, that they wanted to get away from the natural remedies because they could not make a profit off of it.
That's true.
And so they instituted the healthcare system that we have now.
Mhm.
And that's the bottom line for them, is the profit.
And you know, it seems like that Satan would have a counterfeit for God's health recipe. You know, if he could make medicine and pharmaceuticals his way of treating disease as opposed to God's way, he's going to do it. And he's going to try to make people successful from being involved in it so that they would be distracted from the natural. And it's like here they were saying, if we had our institutions where we did heal naturally, and I think that we should have been the head and not the tail, because as we saw last week, there are numerous people, doctors out there, that are bucking the system because the system isn't using natural remedies. And they poo-poo it. They go after those doctors to take away their license if they're using natural things. And they just want to heal. And they want to do it with the things that are available to us, not some synthetic thing. And so when we are doing it the right way, like you said, Jerry, and what she says in that first paragraph, there are people that are going to these rich country club things, spending all this money and stuff, and they're not really getting healed. Because the mindset is that the disease they have, they can't cure it. They can only palliate it. And you're paying for something that's going to make it worse as opposed to getting better. But if you went to something that God supports and you use his methods and you're praying with the individual that they will be healing as a result of these natural remedies, and they are healed, then, like you said, there's a wedge that you can open up the spiritual. Because what did Christ do most? He healed. Every time you see in the Bible, he's healing first. He's saying that the time is now, but he's healing before he goes on to the next message. Curtis, you had something?
I just want to make a comment. I think what's so unfortunate about pharmaceuticals is that people are being duped into thinking that they're being cured. And then and over time, they know, eventually they'll know they're not being cured by the pharmaceuticals. And also the other unfortunate thing is by that time, you know, sometimes they turn to the natural remedies at the end.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unfortunate, because they've relied on, well, they're fooled this whole time, and then they turn to the natural, where they try to turn to the alternative, which should have been the first choice.
Right.
First option.
Yeah. But,
To add to that, the person said, I experienced that with my stepmother. You know, she just kept going to the doctor, and she had so many drugs that it just, you know, finally weakened her system completely. And then I had begged my dad to take her to Heartland or someplace like that for about 3 years. And finally, in the very end, he said, well, Jerry, he said, do you think that Heartland would take her? And I said, Dad, it's too late she's bedridden. She, you know, she can't do anything and won't do anything for herself. You know, I tried to tell you to do it while she was still able. And I said, now her system is flooded with all these drugs, and there's nothing that you're going to be able, you know, it's not going to be a miracle cure. And that's what I think they hope for in the very end. Oh, well, if I just do it this way now, then it'll be a miracle. And, you know, that's the saddest part about it, that I watched her, you know, go like that. Because it took so long for her to go down.
Exactly. Well, the pharmaceutical companies have really, the bombarding of the ads to people, and you walk into a grocery store and you see all the over-counter things and the publicity that's out there. And then the people who really want to do the health way, they are harassed, their license are taken away, they have to do it in secretive, they have to go out of the country. It's really sad. But this is the state in which the world is in today. This is where we're at. And we need to do the one-on-one with people and to show them that there is a better way and that there's God's way of doing it.
And all the side effects that come with it.
Yes, yes.
If you read what the side effects are, it scares you. You don't want to take them.
Why would you think that you could cure cancer with a toxic chemical that's going to really affect your other organs? It doesn't make any common sense. There's no common sense in that whatsoever.
Because people aren't really told that way.
No.
When a doctor gives you something, he doesn't tell you, I'm giving you a toxic chemical that's going to break down your entire system.
Your immune system can't fight off,
I
yes.
mean, they don't tell you that.
Exactly.
It's not the way they present it to you.
Exactly.
Well, I think also, we all know that we live in a buy now, pay later society. We also live in a get rich quick type of,
Mentality.
The lotteries and all those types of things. Well, that's kind of what the medical community is in the business of.
Quick fixes.
Making people think that they're going to quickly be healed, or surgeries, or whatever the case may be. Like we saw in the video about cancer and things like that. Even though the chemo is long and drawn out, but they think that that's going to cure them. But also, I forgot my train of thought. But, like for example, and I can't remember, was the video last week, did it talk about chiropractors?
Mm-hmm.
Did it talk about how the medical society is trying to
To
put them out of
business. Mm-hmm.
business? And
Like they've done some of the others already.
right, and my dad was having some severe back problems not so long ago, about 8, 9 months ago, and it eventually got to the point to where he had to be in bed for most of the day, and we had talked. He's very private, and he doesn't really complain or talk too much about it. But when we did start talking about it, I knew he was in pretty bad shape. And all he could think about was getting the surgery, because I need to get the surgery. And a doctor that he knew was an old doctor that he knew since he was young. That was the doctor that his family members went to. And he wanted to go to this doctor, but it was going to take about 8 months to get to him, because he was one of the favorites in large, small community. But he'd been there for years. He was 80 years old, but he was a doctor that everybody relied on or went to. So the pain got so bad that he ended up going to another physician, and he got worked on. Like, he didn't get any better. But leading up to that, I said, Dad, do you think you might want to try like an alternative method first, and go to a chiropractor, and try to see if they can make some adjustments on you. You had some bulging discs and things like that in multiple areas. I knew his back was in pretty bad shape, but at least try the more natural way and see if the adjustments would work. But he didn't. He was in pain, and he wanted a quick fix and wanted the surgery. And he said, you know, I had a guy at church tell me that maybe I should go see a chiropractor. So maybe that, and, you know, on top of me
Somebody
mentioning
else.
it again, and I was like, Dad, check with your insurance. He said, see, sure enough, his insurance had it fully covered.
Oh, praise the
And
Lord.
he was able to go to a chiropractor, so I'm praying that he'll get some type of relief.
Did he happen to get any relief when he came back from it this time?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
But with the pinched nerves and stuff aside, and they
Takes a while for that to heal.
explained it to me when a nerve is pinched or been compressed for so long that it's like a cushion. When the pressure is
Pressure's off.
released,
Takes
that
time.
The nerve stays compressed, so you don't feel immediate relief right away. It takes some time for the blood circulation
Sure.
to start getting that nerve back into the way it's supposed to work. So I'm praying that you will get some relief.
Yes, we'll keep him on our prayer list. Yeah. All right, who will read the next 2 paragraphs for me? Arlene? Okay.
Let's see, is it those connected? Is that where we are?
Yes. Mhm.
Those connected,
Those connected with the Health Institute, now located at Battle Creek, should feel that they are engaged in an important and solemn work, and in no way should they pattern after the physicians at the institution at blank in matters of religion and amusements. Yet I saw that there would be danger of imitating them in many things and losing sight of the exalted character of this great work. And should those connected with this enterprise cease to look at their work from a high religious standpoint and descend from the exalted principles of present truth to imitate in theory and practice those at the head of institutions where the sick are treated only for the recovery of health, the special blessing of God would not rest upon our institution more than upon those where corrupt theories are taught and practiced. I saw that a very extensive work could not be accomplished in a short time, as it would not be an easy matter to find physicians whom God could approve and who would work together harmoniously, disinterestedly, and zealously for the good of suffering humanity. It should ever be kept prominent that the great object to be attained through this channel is not only health, but perfection and the spirit of holiness, which cannot be attained with diseased bodies and minds. This object cannot be secured by working merely from the worldling standpoint. God will raise up men and qualify them to engage in the work, not only as physicians of the body, but of the sin-sick soul, as spiritual fathers to the young and inexperienced.
What's one of the themes of those 2 paragraphs? She's kind of counseling, don't be in such a rush. You know?
Dangers of
Imitating the world, right. And that it's better to have dedicated physicians that are concerned about the whole body, mind, spirit, and health, than just attaining the health aspect. Because it's all connected, and you can't have sustainability with one unless you have it all coming together. And I see that she's saying it's going to be difficult to find God's approval with those who will work together harmoniously and disinterestedly and the zealous for the good of the suffering humanity. In other words, there's got to be more in the curriculum of the person than just being a physician. How do they treat their patients? Are they praying to the Lord for the healing? Are they giving the Lord the credit for what He is telling them to do for the individual? There's more in this down the line, so if we just kind of keep going with it, then we'll gather more gems. Who would like to read the next 2 paragraphs? Or 3? Put them together. Curtis, please.
I was shown that the position of Dr. E in regard to amusements was wrong, and that his views of physical exercise were not all correct. The amusement which he recommends hinder the recovery of health in many cases to one that is helped by them. He has to a great degree condemned physical labor for the sick, and his teaching in many cases had proved a great injury to them. Such mental exercise as playing cards, chess, and checkers excites and wearies the brain and hinders recovery, while light and pleasant physical labor will occupy the time, improve the circulation, relieve and restore the brain, and prove a decided benefit to the health. But take from the invalid all such employment, and he becomes restless, and with a diseased imagination views his case as much worse than it really is, which tends to be imbecility. For years, I have from time to time been shown that the sick should be taught that it is wrong to suspend all physical labor in order to regain health. In thus doing, the will becomes dormant, the blood moves sluggishly through the system, and constantly grows more impure, where the patient is in danger of imagining his case worse than it really is. Indolence will be sure to produce the most unhappy results. Well-regulated labor gives the invalid the idea that he is not totally useless in the world, that he is at least of some benefit. This will afford him satisfaction, give him courage, and impart to him vigor, which vain mental amusements can never do.
So when you're sick, you don't just curl up in bed and lay there for a month or 2, do you? And what is she indicating happens when you do that?
It just slows down, and eventually you die. I mean, you can't, you can just lay there and die.
I know when, oh, Jerry, go ahead.
So how many of us, when we don't feel well, even if it's for a day or so, I can't lay there that long. I get sore, and I gotta flip, and I gotta walk, and they're kicking and throwing the covers off, and it's one of those things. You end up, I don't know how people can lay there that long.
I know. When I had my foot surgery, and I understood the instructions, and I should have known better, but I didn't. I followed the instructions. I became a patient, okay, and not the nurse that I know with the information that I should have done on my own thinking. But they said be off of your feet for 3 weeks. I followed being off my feet for 3 weeks. If my mind would have just thought, I could have been off my foot walking around by lifting it up. Duh, But I kept my foot elevated, and I was in bed. I got a blood clot in my leg. And then I had to go on, I finally got some natural remedy after I got stuck in the system, because they want to put you on blood thinners immediately, and I didn't want to be on them. So I did them for a short period of time till I could find a physician that would treat me naturally. But that was a scary thing. My bosses wanted me to come back to work, and I'm thinking it's going to break off and go to my lung and I'm gone. I mean, it's not something you want to play around with. But it's like you can't just lay in bed and do nothing. I mean, sure, I was studying, I was using my brain and stuff, but I wasn't exercising. My body was immobile. And I'd roll over and stick my leg up on pillows, and this way and that way, but that was about it.
You become weaker and weaker.
Yeah. So you have to use common sense, and you have to question the instructions that you're given, so that you get a clear understanding of what it is that's best for you. And so trying to do mental things when you really need to move around, you may, from what she's saying, you're not going to get healed that way.
No, you feel much better
If you're up and moving, even if you're,
you can hurt somewhat.
yeah, even if you hurt somewhat, even if you've delayed in starting the practice, go and work through the hurt, work through the pain. You know, I've known people with frozen shoulders. They've gone to the doctor and they've had to go through the pain of the movement. If you keep it still, it's not going to get any better. You've got to move through the pain. Yes, Abraham?
I remember a story of rehabilitation that is about James White. He got injured. I forget what the injury was. But anyway, the doctors had told him not to be very active, and he had kind of slowed down. And Miss White realized that it was the time for him to start getting a little more active. And as they were going along in the wagon, she saw some wood chips along the ground, or some type of chips that they could burn in the fire. And she
Made him get down and pick them up.
and she tells James and her son, "Oh, it'd be really nice to have those wood chips in the house for burning." And kind of begrudgingly, not really wanting to, James gets off the wagon and bends down and picks up wood chips, and that was her way of kind of.
As we go further in here, she's going to discuss about another lady and her husband, and him following some of those don't do this and don't do that kind of things. So anything else from what Chris said?
This reminds me of my father. Sometime ago, it was like probably 10, 15 years ago, he had his first heart problem, he had a triple bypass, and, he didn't even go to therapy. He said, forget therapy, I'll do it on my own. And he did. He got up, moved, he was so active for all those years after that surgery. And then he even helped Jeremy and I rebuild our house in the end. But then when he had his heart attack, 7, 8 years ago, whatever, the doctor told him, you don't need to be doing so much. Don't lift so much. And Dad, unfortunately listened to him. And so he kind of slowed down, but he still was pretty active. And then, his second heart attack, the doctor's like, you really need to slow down. So he starts slowing down even more. He kind of starts sitting around and doing nothing. And then he had his severe stroke. And now I watched my father do absolutely nothing. He'll sit in his chair and listen to these doctors. When I keep telling him, Dad, get up and move.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart needs it.
Yeah, your whole body.
The more you move, the better you'll feel. And he just doesn't want to listen to it. He'd rather listen to a doctor. And it's just so sad. Because, he loves God, and he can get out there and tell him about it, but he just listens to a doctor instead of what God would want.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have anything else they want to add to those paragraphs? Okay, who would like to read the next couple of paragraphs?
I will.
Okay.
No, you're on.
Uh,
You want to start with the view?
I think
Those view that goes.
the view of those.
The view that those who have abused both their physical and mental powers, or who have broken down in either mind or body, must suspend activity in order to regain health is a great error. In a very few cases, entire rest for a short period may be necessary, but these instances are very rare. In most cases, the change would be too great. Those who have broken down by intense mental labor should have rest from wearing thought, yet to teach them that it is wrong and even dangerous for them to exercise their mental powers to a degree leads them to view their condition as worse than it really is. They become still more nervous and are a great trouble and annoyance to those who have the care of them. In this state of mind, their recovery is doubtful indeed. Those who have broken down by physical exertion must have less labor and that which is light and pleasant. But to shut them away from all labor and exercise would in many cases prove their ruin. The will goes with the labor of their hands, and those accustomed to labor would feel that they were only machines to be acted upon by physicians and attendants, and the imagination would become diseased. Inactivity is the greatest curse that could come upon such. Their powers become so dormant that it is impossible for them to resist disease and anger as they must do in order to regain health.
I got something very specific from those two paragraphs. Did you see what she was trying to say? If you're a mental person and you get sick, you can't wipe out using your brain or you'll feel useless. So you have to have some exercise, just maybe not as much. And you need to add some work into that, some physical. But if you're a person who is labor intensive, and that's your function in your life where you're always on the go doing something, you can't take all of that away from them, or they will feel useless and they can't get well. So you curb a little bit, but you don't take it all away on either spectrum, so that the body has an opportunity to heal. Because they have to feel like they have sense of worth. They have to feel like that they still can contribute. So you can't say, no, you can't do that paperwork anymore. You gotta do this. It doesn't fit them. So you have to say, well, do a little bit, but let's do some of these other things as well with that. And the same way with the working. You might be able to not tell the person you can't go out and chop the wood, but maybe they could carry 2 or 3 logs to the stack and stack it without much difficulty. It just depends on what the need is. And praying about it and asking the Lord to show you what is the best for this individual's recovery. So that's what I got out of those couple paragraphs. Anybody else get something else as we were reading it? Okay. Jerry?
Now, I noticed that in the first paragraph, near the end, it talks about people who, they view their condition as worse than it really is, and they become still more nervous and are a great trouble and annoyance to those who have to care for them.
Yeah.
The caregiver doesn't get a whole lot of glory in this.
No.
Sometimes it's a thankless job.
I think the caregiver is the person that really, they've humbled themselves to take care of someone else. And I know, being a floor nurse, that you had all sorts of personalities of patients. And you may have 6 or 8 patients, and you have to know how to approach each one. And depending on the pain that that person is in, or their sense of not feeling like they can contribute, that affects how they react to people. And I know when I was a young nurse, it was like, oh, room 425, the lady down there, can you take her today? Because I've had enough of her for this week, But if you really care about people, you'll look for how you can draw that person out and how you can incorporate their care in doing something that can offset their attitude and their moods. I know of a story that this young person was in the hospital, and I think they were supposed to, I don't remember, but let's just take this incident. Maybe she wasn't able to get out and she was going to have a wedding, and she was in the hospital. And so all the nurses on the floor would get together and they saw how they could provide her something in the hospital, a shower or something towards the wedding or whatever, so that she didn't have to miss out on having what she was planning because she couldn't get out of the hospital. Doing these things other than just the medical side and dealing with the person's mental status makes for a much better patient if you can do that. If you can think beyond and think of the whole person and not just the illness, you set the stage to have better patients, because you're all out for them to be healed. And you're thinking of them as a whole person and not just the disease or the gallbladder down in 320 or the, the other person. So that's kind of what I think she's talking about here. All right, let's read the next 2 or 3 paragraphs. 3 paragraphs about Dr. E. So who would like to read those? Okay, Janet? Wait just a second.
Dr. E. has made a great mistake in regard to exercise and amusements, and is still greater in his teaching concerning religious experience and religious excitement. The religion of the Bible is not detrimental to the health of body or mind. The exalting influence of the Spirit of God is the best restorative for the sick. Heaven is all health, and the more fully the heavenly influences are felt, the more sure the recovery of the believing invalid. The influence of such views as are advanced by Dr. E. has reached us as a people in some degree. Sabbath-keeping health reformers must be free from all these. Every true and real reform will bring us nearer to God and heaven, closer to the side of Jesus, and increase our knowledge of spiritual things and deepen in us the holiness of Christian experience. It is true that there are unbalanced minds that impose upon themselves fasting, which the Scriptures do not teach, and prayers and privation of rest and sleep, which God has never required. Such are not prospered and sustained in their voluntary acts of righteousness. They have a pharisaical religion, which is not of Christ, but of themselves. They trust in their good works for salvation, vainly hoping to earn heaven by their meritorious works, instead of relying, as every sinner should, upon the merits of a crucified, risen, and exalted Savior. These are almost sure to become sickly. But Christ and true godliness are health to the body and strength to the soul. Let invalids do something instead of occupying their minds with a simple play, which lowers them in their own estimation and leads them to think their lives useless. Keep the power of the will awake, for the will aroused and rightly directed is a potent soother of the nerves. Invalids are far happier to be employed, and their recovery is more easily effected.
Amen. How many of us believe that? Go ahead.
I wasn't an invalid, but I was pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
And after Wendy went home,
Mm-hmm.
I was...
By yourself?
By myself, yeah.
Okay.
So I had to take care of myself. So I followed up with all the treatments.
Okay.
Every day I took 2 treatments on my chest. And I got much better, but I felt weak.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, I got to get out of this house, So I thought, well, what if I went over to Walmart and fainted or something?
Sure. Because you're by yourself.
Possibility,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'm going to pray. The Lord give me strength to get out of the house and go over and get a few groceries, you know.
Okay.
And so he did. He gave me strength to go over there. And I walked around quite a bit trying to get some exercise.
Okay.
And so after that, I really wasn't afraid. It was too cold to get out
Sure.
and walk there.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So it was either you have to run out to the car and go shopping or something.
Or get into something else that's warmer.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then the rest of the time I would read or listen to a DVD or something like that.
So you were rounding out your own care
Yeah.
by doing the physical as well as the mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got well.
Praise the Lord. I was so happy to see you 2 weeks ago when you came back. It's very nice. Very good. Anyone else? I'd like to pause for a minute and see if you can remember any Bible text of where Jesus went around, and we talked about it, but when he met new people, what was the first thing that he did?
Met their physical needs with it.
Yes, that he met their physical needs first off. And I know we were discussing in Ministry of Healing, we were reading about how, once his disciples started going around and teaching, what was the first thing they started doing? They were healing, just like Jesus did. And it seems as if I've read somewhere, and I don't remember exactly where, but it's like when you go and help somebody and you help them with their physical, their minds are more open to hear the gospel because you've given them something. And it's when it's their health, I mean, that really affects the person, Or even if you go and help somebody. I know I've heard some stories, and I don't know if it was Riley that told me this, where they'd gone to a house, or maybe it was Brian Beavers when he was here. The whole youth went together to help this woman clean her house and get it in order and take her children for a day and just befriended her with kindness and with help. And it really impressed her so much that she wanted to be around these people more and more. What a wedge to get in the door to help somebody to want to know you. It's because of what you've done for them without asking for anything in return. You just have a caring attitude and you're showing love with no strings attached. And that's not seen very much in these days and times. Everybody's locking their doors and everybody's into themselves, and nobody trusts each other anymore because they don't know what the alternative motive may be. So can you imagine the difference that we would make in their lives if we just knocked on the door and said, "Is there anything I can do for you today? Do you need some help?" Well, yeah, we don't know who's living alone and may need groceries, or who's living alone and may need to go to the doctors and not know how they're going to get there. I mean, I was thankful this week because I had a flat tire, and I was expecting to be able to call AAA and have them put my spare on and go from there. And when I called them and they came, I found out that my car didn't have a spare. How about the car never being told that I didn't have a spare tire? So I was thankful that I was sitting in a gas station, but the air pump said it was temporarily out of service. So I couldn't fill up the air in the tire I already had. And it had a slit in the side, so I wouldn't have gotten very far anyway. But to be stranded in the middle of the country with not having a spare, and what if you hadn't had roadside assistance in this weather? So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that could use our help. But what does that do for us? What do we have to decide in order to help someone else? That thing that I was planning to do today, can I put that off and go see if I can help somebody? Can I pray first and say, Lord, where would you have me to go? Who needs help? Where I'm at, that I can be of help. We kind of have to humble ourselves. We have to set aside selfish things that we had decided we were going to do.
It makes me think about Diane when you talk about that.
Exactly.
She was
That was
always
in my thoughts too.
there. No matter what you call her in the middle of the night, she'd say, I can come up. Or if you had something happen or needed help in some way, it seems like she was always there willing to help no matter what.
Sometimes you think that the Lord allows things to happen because people are ready. We need to start looking at our lives. Are we in the position to be ready? That the Lord could call us any time? Are we witnessing every day? I know that every time I think of Diane, I think about her on her job.
Yes, she always witnessed.
And every time somebody came in, she had something to say about the Lord. And maybe this is just what the Lord is trying to get us to pay attention to.
Even
And
when she was in the hospital, she said she would witness to people that came in and helped.
well, her mind was set on that. We have to get our minds set on the Lord being with us. We're abiding in Him every single day for anything that He wants to give us to get us ready. And I'll tell you right now, the thoughts that I'm thinking are not something that I plan to say, so you know that the Holy Spirit is here to help us all get to that point. We've come to the end of the time for Sabbath school, so we'll pick up with this same testimony next week, and hopefully we will get to the end of it.